It was the best-paying job of his miserable life, and that was exactly what terrified him. Because when the payment is too high, the target tends to be impossible to kill. Rowan was the best tracker of the Northern Marks, and was tired of being so. But that contract was his way out. He hated the cold, hated the snow, and hated hunting. But the clause was too strange to ignore. Bring her in alive, without marks. He wondered what kind of creature needed to be delivered intact. He suspected it was just another one of Lord Drakmar's perversions. The wind in the Northern Marks did not blow. It decided. And that night it decided to erase every track, every print, every trace of anything that had passed through the frozen land. But Rowan did not need tracks. 30 years hunting in the shadows of Thornwood Forest had trained something inside him that no school could teach, a sixth sense for what moved in the dark. He knew she was following him. He pretended to adjust the strap on his mount's saddle, a war rhinoceros hardened by decades of battle, its skin like a blacksmith's leather, while he searched for her reflection in the blade of his knife. And there she was, crouched behind a split rock, a bone axe in her hand, ready to leap. He had her. She did not hesitate. She threw herself straight at his throat with a force that would have knocked an ordinary man down twice over. But Rowan did not draw steel either. He launched the chemical vapor sphere with force, the same dirty trick he had learned in the eastern mines. Her own lungs betrayed her. She fell into the snow, blind and suffocated. 10 seconds. Reinforced rope, tension knots, no marks on the skin. The contract required it. When she recovered her sight, she was already loaded over the beast. Wrists tied behind her back, ankles locked by a short chain, furious, lethal, but caught. They set off, leaving behind the giant cemetery in the Iron Peaks. Silence returned to the mountain, broken only by the creak of snow under the heavy hooves of the rhinoceros. Rowan rode without looking back. He did not need to. He could feel the weight of her hatred like a stone pressed against his spine. The orc woman did not curse or scream. She said nothing. That was worse than screaming. Her name was Varka. He knew that much from Drakmar's scroll. A clan runner from the Green Shadow territories, a region Rowan had crossed for 30 years without ever finding this particular stone camp. Nobody in the Northern Marks knew it existed. Drakmar did. That was the detail that kept scratching at the back of Rowan's mind like a nail on iron. He was not paid to think, he was paid to deliver, still. There was something off about the contract from the start. The clause, bring her in alive without marks, was the kind of language men used for things they wanted to keep whole, not for beasts, for prizes. And the silver that had been dropped into his hand without bargaining, without hesitation, told him the buyer already knew the price of what he was asking. Too clean, too easy. Too much money for one orc woman traveling alone in a frozen mountain pass. The rhinoceros snorted, shaking its great horned head. The animal was uneasy. Rowan had learned to trust that. He scanned the tree line, petrified trunks, black against the white sky. Nothing moved, and yet the cold that settled over him then was not the wind's doing. Something was watching them. He filed it away. There would be time to worry later. For now, the contract was clear. Head south, reach the lowland road, deliver the package, collect the gold. Simple enough for a man with 30 years of practice making ugly things feel routine. He pulled his coat tighter and kept riding. Varka said nothing behind him, but her silence had a shape, and that shape was rage, waiting for its moment. Rowan had met rage before. He had survived it every time. He told himself that as the mountains swallowed the last light and the darkness came down like a lid on a coffin. 2 months before the capture, before the rope and the vapor sphere and the bone axe in the dark, Rowan had been sitting in his mud and rotted wood cabin outside West March, counting copper coins by the light of a tallow candle. The roof leaked in 3 places. He had put pots under 2 of them. The third dripped onto his old hay mattress, which had long since stopped being anything a man could call comfortable. The coins came to just enough to eat through the next hard freeze, not enough to leave, not enough to stop, never enough. The knock at the door was not what he expected. He expected nothing. Nobody came to Rowan's door without a contract already written. This one had a contract. The messenger was a young man in clean clothes, too clean for the northern marks, where even the rich wore grime like a second skin. He placed a sealed envelope on the table without sitting down, without offering his name, and left before Rowan had finished reading the first line. The letter was written in a careful hand. The offer was in silver, more silver than Rowan had seen in one place since the jade ore strike at Ord Canyon 15 years back. The bonus, paid upon delivery, was in gold, the kind of gold that bought a house with solid walls and a roof that did not leak. The kind of gold that bought a man out of the northern marks forever. The clause was simple and strange: deliver the target alive, without marks, to the estate of Lord Drakmar at the edge of the southern road. Rowan read it 3 times. He had worked ugly contracts before. He had tracked men accused of things they may or may not have done. He had retrieved stolen animals worth more than people. He had once spent 6 weeks tracking a sealed chest across 2 mountain passes, contents unknown. He had learned not to ask what was inside things he was paid to carry, but this one had a name attached: Varka of the Iron Clan. He knew the Iron Clan. Everybody in the northern marks knew the Iron Clan by reputation: orc warriors who had held the upper passes for 3 generations, who traded fairly and fought fiercely and kept to their own territories unless pushed. Not fairer, not monsters, clan people. Rowan stared at the name for a long time. Then he looked at the silver, then at the roof. A fresh drop of cold water hit the mattress with a flat, tired sound. He folded the letter and put it in his coat. He told himself the silver was the reason. He told himself the gold was the exit he had been waiting 30 years for. He told himself Varka was just a name on a page, and names on pages were how the work started. He told himself a great many things that night, and by morning he had packed his kit and saddled the rhinoceros and started north, toward the Iron Peaks, toward the stone camp that should not have existed on any map he had ever read. Drakmar's map showed it perfectly. Every rock, every approach, every blind spot in the terrain. That was the nail scratching the back of his mind as he rode. Someone had studied Varka for a long time before deciding to buy her. Someone patient, someone with resources, someone who needed her delivered without a mark on her skin. Rowan rode north and did not let himself finish the thought. By the second morning of the journey south, Varka had stopped pulling against the ropes, not because she had given up. Rowan knew the difference between surrender and calculation. She was calculating. He could see it in the way her dark eyes moved, not wild, not desperate, but reading the terrain, reading the rhinoceros, reading him. She was looking for the moment. He did not give her one. He kept the chains short and the pace steady, stopping only to water the beast at frozen streams he had to break open with the heel of his boot. The Iron Peaks gave way to the lower ridges, where the snow thinned and the wind dropped, and the light came back into the world in long grey sheets. On the 3rd stop, he made a small fire and heated water. He offered her some. She stared at the cup for a long moment before taking it with both bound hands. She drank without looking at him. Her jaw was tight, her shoulders set against the cold, and the long scar on her left shoulder, the one made by a war blade, was dark against her grey-green skin in the firelight. Someone had hunted her before. That thought sat heavy in Rowan's chest, like an undigested meal. He pushed it down. "You understand common tongue?" he asked. "Not for conversation, for practicality." She said nothing. "I'm going to assume yes," he said. "If you try to run in this terrain with those chains on, you'll break an ankle before you reach the tree line. I don't want to carry you. You probably don't want to be carried." She said nothing, but her jaw unclenched slightly. Just slightly. He took that for a working truce. The rhinoceros began to favor its left side by midday, a small hitch in the step that Rowan knew would become a limp by nightfall. He had pushed the animal hard in the chase. It was a proud creature, built for punishment, but punishment had a price in the end. He slowed the pace and hated that he had to. The lowland road was still 2 days south, Drakmar's estate, another day beyond that. Every delay cost him something he could not afford to lose. The control of the situation, the clean delivery, the gold. He was thinking about the gold when Varka spoke. "You do not know what you are bringing me to." Her common tongue was rough but clear, the accent thick with the gutturals of clan speech, every consonant weighted like a stone placed deliberately. "Not my business," Rowan said. "It will be," she said. And then she said nothing more. He wanted to ask her what she meant. He did not ask. He told himself there was no point in knowing things he could not use. He told himself the gold was still the exit. He told himself he had heard desperate people say desperate things before, and it meant nothing. The hitch in the rhinoceros's step grew worse. By dusk, it was a limp. By dark, it was a struggle. They stopped at the edge of a boulder field, and Rowan built a small fire and fed the animal from the grain pack and rubbed tallow into the strained muscle along its left flank. He could feel Varka watching him work. "You are kind to the animal," she said. "Animals don't lie," he said. A long pause. The fire crackled. Ice cracked somewhere in the dark, far off, like something waking. "Neither do I," she said. Rowan did not answer. He put more wood on the fire and told himself to sleep. But her words followed him down into the cold dark behind his eyes, and sleep, when it came, was shallow and full of things he could not name in the morning. The Alcatea, the pack of Lanudo beasts from the ancient era, hit them at the edge of Thornwood Forest on the 4th morning. Rowan smelled them first, a thick, oily musk that cut through the cold air like a blade, the scent of creatures that had been hunting since before men had names for what they feared. He had 3 seconds between the smell and the first shadow between the petrified trunks. He drove his heels into the rhinoceros, and it erupted into a dead run. 3 tons of muscle and horn crashing through the brittle undergrowth, splitting young trees like dry kindling. Rowan reached for the sulfur spheres at his belt, counted 2, threw them at the lead animals rushing in from the left. Flash and smoke. 2 of the beasts veered off, crashing into each other, but there were more. The pack was large, 7, 8, he lost count, and they ran in silence, which was what made them lethal. No howling, no warning calls, just the sound of heavy bodies moving through snow, and the dry crack of jaws that could split a thigh bone like a twig. Rowan used the combat staff on the ones that came close, blocked a lunge, cracked a skull. The rhinoceros was fighting on instinct, its horns sweeping in wide arcs, scattering 2 more, but the pack was herding them. He realized it too late, driving them left, always left, away from the open ground and toward the ridge, toward the precipice. He saw it in the last moment, a drop of 40 feet, snow falling away into darkness below. The pack had stopped behind them, 6 bodies in a half-circle, waiting, knowing. The rhinoceros stamped and snorted at the edge, refusing to go back into the pack, refusing to go forward into nothing. Rowan made the wrong decision in the right way. He kicked the rhinoceros over the edge. They fell in a terrible clean silence. The animal hit the slope below and rolled, massive and broken, Rowan thrown clear, Varka still chained to the saddle, tumbling with it. He hit the snow hard and lost everything for a moment. Sound, direction, air in his lungs. When he came back, he was in a cave, not deep, just a hollow in the rock face below the ridge, wide enough for the rhinoceros to have slid into. The animal was alive, barely, its great rib cage moving in slow, shallow heaves. Varka was beside it, still chained, one side of her face dark with bruising, but her eyes were open, and her jaw was set in the particular expression of someone who has survived worse. Rowan built a fire with dry wood and old bones he found in the hollow. He caught a snow hare from a crack in the rock wall. It had been sheltering from the cold, trembling, and roasted it over the fire. The smell of hot fat filled the cave. He tore off a piece of smoking meat. He walked to Varka and held it out. She stiffened, waiting for something other than food. Then she understood. She ate from his hand, her large teeth grazing his fingers, not biting, not threatening. Her eyes met his over the meat, There was hatred there, yes, but underneath the hatred, for the first time, something else. A truce that had no word in either of their languages, just the simple fact of hunger shared, warmth shared, survival shared. Rowan pulled his hand back slowly. The fire popped. The rhinoceros breathed. Outside, the pack did not follow them down. But something else had moved in the dark above the ridge, and it had not made a sound. The rhinoceros could walk by morning. Barely, but enough. Rowan did not push it. They moved south along the base of the ridge, staying below the tree line, where the pack's scent had faded. The sky was low and white, the kind of sky that promised snow, but never delivered it quickly, just held it there, heavy, threatening, making the light flat and grey and merciless. Varka walked beside the rhinoceros on the short chain. Rowan had loosened her ankle restraints enough for her to move without shuffling. He told himself it was practical. A prisoner who fell behind slowed everything down. He did not examine the other reason too closely. They reached the lowland frontier village by mid-afternoon. Low rooftops, wood and bone palisades, the kind of place where men kept their eyes down, because they had learned that keeping eyes up invited questions, and questions invited trouble. A trading post, a grain store, a smoke-cured meat stall. The smell of old fire and older fear. Rowan bought grain, dried meat and rope, 3 silver coins from Drakmar's advance. He pulled a heavy tunic and hood over Varka before they entered, covering the tusks, the broad shoulders, the hands too large for any human glove. He walked her through like a large, quiet companion. It was not enough. A fur trader bent low near the stall, peering under the hood. What he saw made him straighten fast and start shouting. 2 men blocked the door. Rowan did not waste time on conversation. He put the first man down with an elbow to the jaw. The second got a knee to the ribs. He moved Varka out the door with a hand on her back, not pushing, just directing. And the rhinoceros was already moving, 3 tons opening a path through the palisade gate like parchment tearing. They cleared the village at a full run and did not slow until the rooftops disappeared behind the ridge. Varka said nothing about what he had done. She did not thank him. She did not need to. He had not done it for thanks. He told himself he had done it because a damaged prisoner was a broken contract. She looked at him from under the hood as he slowed the rhinoceros to a walk. Her expression was unreadable in the way that only very intelligent people managed, not blank but contained, everything held behind the eyes where a stranger could not reach it. "Drakmar," she said, "just the name." "Yes." "You know what he collects?" "I don't ask. You should start." Rowan looked at the road ahead. The southern road was half a day away. Drakmar's estate was a day beyond that. The gold was there. The exit was there. "What does he collect?" he asked. He hated himself a small amount for asking. She was quiet long enough that he thought she would not answer. "He collects things that are the last of their kind," she said. "The last snow leopard from the high passes, the last golden tree from the canyon of jade, the last speaker of the old tongue from the western marshes." She paused. "The last elder daughter of the Iron Clan's bloodline." The road made no sound under the rhinoceros's hooves. The white sky pressed down. Rowan did not look at her. He looked at the road. He looked at the gold that was waiting at the end of it. He looked at it for a very long time. He did not turn around. He kept riding south. But something had shifted, the way ice shifts before it breaks, not visible yet, not loud, but structural. Something underneath that had been solid was no longer solid. They camped that night in a hollow between 2 large rocks that blocked the wind from the north. Rowan built the fire low and quiet. He fed the rhinoceros the last of the grain and rubbed tallow into its left flank again, working the muscle until the animal's breathing steadied. Varka watched him from across the fire. "Why do you do that?" she asked. "Do what?" "Care for it. You could push it harder. It would go until it died. You know that." "I know," he said. "But you don't." "No." She considered this for a moment. The fire was small between them, barely enough to push back the cold, but enough. "My clan does not take animals past their limit," she said. "It is one of our laws. A beast pushed to death carries your shame in the next world." "I don't believe in the next world," Rowan said. "You believe in something," she said. "Men who believe in nothing do not stop to tend a lame animal in the cold." He had no answer for that. He poked the fire with a stick and watched the sparks rise and go dark. She shifted her bound hands and winced. The chain had worked a bruise into her left wrist. He saw it. He did not look away fast enough. She caught him looking. Neither of them spoke. After a long moment, he reached into his pack and pulled out a strip of cloth. He moved around the fire. She watched him come without pulling back, which told him more than anything she had said all day. He wrapped the cloth around the bruised wrist, between skin and chain, to cushion the metal. Nothing more. He went back to his side of the fire. The wind made a low sound over the top of the rocks. Somewhere far to the east, something howled. Not a pack beast, not anything he recognized. Too high, too deliberate. "They will send someone after us," Varka said quietly. "Drakmar does not leave a delivery to chance. When a contract this large is placed, he sends a second hand." Rowan had thought the same thing since the village. What kind of second hand? She looked at him across the fire. Her eyes caught the light. The kind that cleans up what goes wrong. The kind that does not need a clause about marks. He understood. An insurance killer, a grotesque, as the old frontier word had it, a hunter with no rules, no limits, no preference for whether the delivery arrived breathing. He would kill Rowan as easily as he would kill Varka once the situation became complicated enough to require it. The situation was becoming complicated. "Sleep," he said. "We move at first light." She lay down on her side, bound hands curled against her chest, the chain running short between her wrists and the saddle ring he had staked into the ground. She closed her eyes. She trusted, or accepted, that he would not leave her like that in the cold. He was not sure which one was more remarkable. He did not sleep. He watched the dark and listened to the wind and tried to remember why the gold had seemed like enough. The grotesque found them on the 5th day, in the skull of the Titan. The skull was a monument of the forgotten era, a bone cathedral emerging from the ice in the Iron Peak's lower foothills, the jaw alone, large enough for the rhinoceros to walk through without lowering its head. Men in the northern marks called it the old god's door, though no one agreed on which god or which door. It was simply there, as it had always been, massive and indifferent, full of the particular cold that very old things carry inside them. Rowan had chosen it as a shelter, a mistake he would not make again. He woke to a sound that was not wind, a pressure in the air, a shift, the kind that experienced men feel before the strike arrives. He rolled left in time to feel the black chain cut the air where his throat had been. He came up with the combat staff, blocked the second swing, and got his first look at the thing Drakmar had sent. The grotesque was a man in shape only. He was mounted on a massive hyena that read tracks like a scholar read parchment, calm, methodical, without excitement or urgency. The grotesque himself was still, even in motion, the way very dangerous things were still. He used the black chain the way other men use their hands, naturally, without thinking about it. He was not here for Varka, not primarily. He was here to close the contract cleanly, which now meant removing Rowan. The first exchange was fast and ugly. Chain against staff, staff losing. Rowan took a hit to the shoulder that went numb immediately. He went back against the wall of the skull, bone white as chalk, curved like a cathedral, and the chain wrapped around his throat. His vision narrowed to a point of light. He heard something, a crack, a roar, a sound that was not language and was not animal either, but was both at once. Varka hit the grotesque from the side with the full weight of her body and both bound hands swinging the chain between them like a flail. The impact was enormous. The grotesque lost the grip on Rowan's throat. She did not stop. She drove him back across the skull floor with a fury that was not rage. It was older than rage, something that lived under rage. something that had been building since the first person had ever sent a hunter to catch her. Rowan fell against the bone wall, gasping. He saw her fight, and he understood, in a way that had nothing to do with words, that Varka of the Iron Clan was not a prize. She was not a last specimen for a collector's haul. She was a person who had survived everything that had been sent to stop her surviving, and she was doing it again now, with chains on her wrists, in a dead god's skull, in the cold. The grotesque was skilled. He recovered. The hyena came in from the side. Varka took a blow and went down to one knee, breathing hard. Rowan got up. He reached Drakmar's hunter in 3 steps and put him down with the efficiency of someone who had done ugly things for 30 years and was finally, for the first time, doing one on the right side of the line. Not clean, not easy, but done. The hyena broke and ran. Silence filled the skull like water filling a cave. Varka knelt on the bone floor, blood on her lip, chest heaving. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. He reached into his coat and pulled out the knife. She did not move. He cut the ropes. "Go," he said. "Run." She did not go. She stood up slowly. The cut ropes fell to the bone floor. She rolled her wrists, not stretching, just feeling the return of something she had been denied. She looked at her hands for a moment, then at him. "You threw away the gold," she said. "Yes. Why?" He thought about the silver, about the roof that leaked in 3 places, about the mattress, about 30 years of ugly work in the cold. He thought about the way she had wrapped her own warmth around him in the night without being asked, when he had been too cold to wake, too proud to ask. "Escambo de honra," he said, the old frontier word, older than money, older than contracts. The exchange of honor. You give, I owe. Not silver, not gold, just the oldest currency in the world. She looked at him for a long time. Then she picked up the bone axe from where it had fallen during the fight. She turned it in her hands, checking the blade, checking the haft, and looped it back onto her belt with a movement that was entirely and completely her own. Free. "Drakmar will send more," she said. "I know. He will send better. Probably. You cannot go south now. They will be watching the southern road. I know that too." She looked at the exit of the skull, the vast arch of the jaw, the sky beyond it bright and white and cold. She looked at the rhinoceros, which had not fled during the fight. The animal stood at the far end of the skull, watching them with its small, patient eyes. "The Iron Clan's winter camp is in the deep canyon," she said. 3 days east. The passes that lead there are known only to the clan. "I can't follow you into clan territory," Rowan said. That's not a place for a man like me." "A man like you," she repeated, not mocking, considering. "What kind of man are you?" He did not answer. He was not sure the answer existed yet in a form he could say out loud. "The clan will hear what you did," she said. "They will hear that you cut the rope. They will hear that you put Drakmar's hunter down with your own hands, to free a prisoner who had already offered you nothing but trouble." She paused. "That is a story the clan understands." The cold moved through the skull in a long, slow breath. "You would be under the clan's protection while you plan what comes next," she said. "The canyon is safe. Drakmar's people cannot find the passes." Rowan looked at the grotesque's body on the floor, looked at the rhinoceros, looked at the arch of the jaw and the sky beyond. 30 years hunting in the cold for money that was never enough. One wrong turn, one door walked through, one contract with a clause too strange to ignore. And now he was standing in the skull of an ancient god, with a cut rope in his hand, and no road back to anything he had built. He picked up his kit. He saddled the rhinoceros. 3 days east, he said. 3 days east, she confirmed. They walked out through the jaw of the old god together, into the white light, into the cold that was the only constant thing he had ever known. The sky was enormous. The cannon was waiting somewhere beyond the ridge, hidden in passes known only to those who belonged to it. He was not one of those people. But he had cut the rope. And in the northern marks, what you cut and what you carry is who you are. The Iron Clan's winter canyon was everything the northern marks were not. It opened in the rock 3 days east of the Titan skull, through a passage so narrow that the rhinoceros had to turn sideways to fit, and then, suddenly, the canyon walls fell back, and the world widened into something that stopped Rowan's breath, not from cold, from the opposite of cold, fire bowls on carved stone pillars, hide tents in deep reds and browns, hung with bone ornaments and green crystals that caught the firelight and threw it in long, slow ribbons across the walls, children running between the tents, small orcs, bright-eyed, unafraid, watching the stranger on the war rhinoceros with more curiosity than fear. Cooking smells, meat and root vegetables, and something spiced with herbs Rowan did not have a name for. Clan warriors at the edge of the camp stood with weapons loose but present. They watched Varka, they watched him. Varka spoke to them in the clan tongue, gutturals and stops and long vowels that Rowan could not follow, but the tone he understood. She was telling them what had happened. He caught his name, said plainly without hostility. He caught Drakmar's name, said with something that was close to disgust. He caught other words he did not know. The warriors listened. They looked at him. One of them, an elder female, broad and still, with silver worked into the braids of her grey-streaked hair, spoke once. Short, final. Varka turned to him. She says, "You are not a guest. You are not a prisoner. You are a debt holder. The clan owes what the clan owes." He did not know exactly what that meant in their law. He was fairly sure it was a large thing. That night, they gave him a tent and a fire and food. They tended the rhinoceros as if it were their own, rubbing the left flank, wrapping the strained leg, giving it grain and water without being asked. He sat outside the tent with a bowl of meat and root stew and watched the fire bowls reflect in the canyon walls and felt, for the first time in 30 years, that he was not moving toward something or away from something. He was simply somewhere. It was an unfamiliar feeling. He was not sure he trusted it. Varka sat beside him. Not close, but beside him, which was already more than the contract had ever promised either of them. "Drakmar will not stop," he said. "No," she agreed. "He has resources, more hunters. He will try again. For you, or for leverage on you. Yes. And I burned the southern road, burned the advance, burned every contact I had with the frontier trading posts who would have helped me disappear." "Yes," she said again. A pause. "You have nothing now." "Not nothing," he said. She looked at him. "I have a debt the Iron Clan owes me," he said. "According to your law." The edge of something moved in her expression, not quite a smile, but the thing that lives next to a smile in a face that has not had much reason to use one. "That is true," she said. He looked at the fire. He thought about Drakmar in his estate at the edge of the southern road, patient, resourced, accustomed to getting what he collected. The last of things. The only specimens left of what the world was thinning out. Rowan was a man who had hunted for 30 years and never once thought about why the thing being hunted was being hunted. He was thinking about it now. He could not stop. "What would it take," he said carefully, "to make Drakmar decide the cost is too high?" Varka was quiet for a long time. The fire popped. A child somewhere in the camp laughed, a bright, unguarded sound, the kind children make when they are completely safe. "More than one tracker with a cut rope," she said. "More than one," he agreed. "But it starts with one." The canyon walls held the firelight. The crystals turned it slow and green. The rhinoceros breathed steadily somewhere behind the tent, its great lungs full of warm air for the first time in days. Far to the south, beyond the iron peaks and the lowland road, and the frontier villages with their low rooftops and their downward eyes, Drakmar sat with his ledger and his patience and his list of last things. He did not yet know that the tracker he had paid had become something the ledger had no column for, something that owed a debt, something that paid. Part 2 is up to you. Ask for it in the comments and show it with your likes, because Rowan has a debt of blood and steel to collect.